You're live.
I pinch myself, I'm always live. We are live on YouTube, however. Welcome back to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, where we are going to go back to one of our pillars of economic development in our downtowns and village centers, which is our downtown program and our downtown tax credit program. And to kick us off, we have several witnesses and incredible expertise around the room in this very subject. We are going to begin with the Deputy Commissioner of Economic Development, Nate Formulari.
Yes, for the record, Deputy Commissioner of Housing and Community Development.
Oh, housing and
Yes.
Right.
All good. I'm just going to give
Department of Housing and Community Development, and Ron Jessup, of course, is our new Commissioner of Economic
Yes.
Apologies.
I'm going to give a very brief overview. I just wanted to introduce, and then Caitlin and Chris is here to answer questions as well as the real experts of this. But one of our most viable and effective revitalization tools is the Downtown and Village Center Tax Credit Program. For more than 2 decades, the program has helped catalyze reinvestment and breathe new life into communities across Vermont. This tax credit is often the first commitment to a project, which unlocks a lot of other funding opportunities for projects. It brings credibility, reduces risk, and helps unlock all that other public and private capital that makes revitalizing our downtowns happen. I think, Chair, you know this well, but for every dollar that's invested, we see an additional investment of $20 to $25 here.
Well, that's grown from a leverage of 17 to 1.
We keep going.
Wow, you're joking. You're not just making that up. 25 to 1.
Things cost more.
That's true.
The governor's proposed budget, so right now this program is capped at $3 million a year. The governor's budget, proposed budget did not include an increase of this annual cap. This is mainly due to the many priorities the enterprise is facing in the tough budget times we're in.
So it's still at 3.
It's still at 3. He does support the program. Oftentimes it's one of our annual press conferences that we have out below. So there's a lot of support for it there, but with all the priorities and pressure on the budget, the raising the cap did not make it. So
can I just ask?
Yeah.
We've already had one witness in yesterday who asked us to eliminate the cap altogether. So why leave the cap?
I don't know the history of that other than in statute, and then during ARPA, some one-time funds were used to raise that to $5 million, which puts it more in line with demand, which Caitlin is going to talk about. The demand.
No, our demand covers.
Yeah.
Much more.
And then after that, ARPA went away, it went back down to 3. So I think it's just in statute. That's where.
It'll be interesting to know why we cap it in the first place. If it's such an important economic development tool.
I would agree with you. It is considered foregone revenue, so taxes that are.
No, I appreciate that.
So,
Sort of raising the.
yes.
Have we hit the cap in previous years?
Yes.
Okay.
Every year.
Every year we do because our demand exceeds.
We have a chart that's going to lay that out.
Our demand exceeds substantially, exceeds what we have available.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That was it?
That's it.
God damn.
Experts.
Well, I'm so glad you made the journey down for that. It's always good to have you here.
Wonderful to see you all.
Okay, great. Caitlin, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Caitlin Corkins with the Department of Housing and Community Development.
You have this presentation.
I have a presentation for you guys. If I can get my screen to share here. Hopefully that is now showing up.
Full screen.
Awesome. All right. I also brought handouts. So I have our annual report. And then this is the slate of projects.
Is this our annual report or is it just the center tax credit?
This is the other one. This is the slate of projects that we awarded this past fall.
Great.
So the most recent award recipients. So looks like some of you already have that.
I actually printed out one of them, but I didn't print out the other one.
This one?
Report, yes.
Okay, so maybe I'll just pass this one over to you guys. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you. You want this justification?
One more? Thank you. All right, and I have plenty more. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a review of the program basics and talk a little bit about where things stand in terms of the program.
Great.
So the Community Investment Program recognizes and supports local revitalization efforts around the state. We do that with dedicated staff and funding to help our downtowns and village centers build and foster strong communities. The biggest carrot of this program is the Downtown and Village Center Tax Credit Program, which was created in 1998. As we've already stated, it awards $3 million annually. To qualify for the program, a building must be located in a state-designated downtown or village center, and the building has to be over 30 years old. The program is competitive. We always get more and requests than we have available to give out. For those projects that we fund.
Sorry, even when we had 5 million.
Even
Which
when
was
we
only
had
for a year, 2 years, it was
for
2
2
years.
years, yes, and even in those years, we were oversubscribed.
Would you opine on how much unmet demand there is? Like if we remove the cap, do you think there would it go to 5, 10, 20, 30 million?
That's a tricky question, because I do think demand would continue to increase if people felt like it was very predictable if they applied, they would get it.
Can't you base it on who you didn't accept this year?
I mean,
this year?
certainly, and I have some data to show you that. You know, we usually are at least 1 million oversubscribed in any given year from what we have. I think reasonably that would go higher than that if the cap was removed, because people would no longer feel like, oh, I might be wasting my time, I might not get this. You know, having that predictability, I think, would increase the overall number of applications. But I don't think it would suddenly go to, you know, 20 million in a year or something like that. I think there would be a time sort of gradually increase over time. So this is all just very basic, talking about the different types of credits that we offer through the program. I know for most of you this is review, but just to sort of remind you of what we fund. So we have a historic credit. This is for properties that are also listed in the National Register of Historic Places and using the Federal Rehabilitation Investment Tax Credit Program. So they can combine that federal incentive with our state program. It covers 10% of all work that's both interior and exterior.
Before you leave us, do you know if the federal RITC is going to continue?
So far, it looks like it is not on any danger. The program has been running as normal, and staff that are administering the program are still all in place. So that's encouraging.
This is encouraging. We'll take it.
For projects that don't qualify for the federal program or are not interested in using that federal program, we do have a facade credit. This is for exterior work only. It's a 25% credit with a cap of 25,000 in credit. For buildings that are historic, we do expect that work meet preservation standards. But as I said before, we do have buildings that are old but not historic. And in those cases, there would be a lot more latitude to make whatever changes the owner felt like they wanted to. The code credits through the program, these are the most popular, most frequently used, definitely the most funding goes towards this category of credits. This is basically anything that an owner would need to do to bring a building up to current building codes. We work with the Division of Fire and Safety. They do inspections to identify code deficiencies, and then at the conclusion of a project, obviously inspect those to make sure they're compliant. And they're a really great partner and actually advocate for us. You know, when they're talking with building owners who've maybe purchased an older building that needs some work, and the owner is, you know, worried about the costs, they will send people my way, which is great. The code credits are 50% credits. We have different caps for some of the big ticket items, elevators up to 75,000 in credit, sprinkler systems up to 50,000 in credit, and then sort of a catch-all for your general electric, plumbing, fire and safety improvements up to 100,000.
Those were last updated when?
I think it's 2 years now since we increased the cap in the other code category because of increasing costs, we were finding that that just really wasn't enough. And so we increased the cap in that category. And we still have projects that hit that cap, some of the bigger projects, but it does help with more of those small, mid-sized projects to really fully do 50% of code improvements.
So and then we have a fourth.
We have a fourth credit. This
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
from fiscal year 2023, so the newest credit in the program. Unfortunately, it was a little prescient, I think, because we added it right before the July 2023 floods hit Vermont. It's a flood mitigation credit designed to encourage owners to make improvements to their building to mitigate against flood risks. It's again a 50% credit, up to 100,000 in credits. So what we saw in the first few years of this credit is that it actually was used to help some of the building owners that were impacted by flooding in 2023 and 2024 to build back better, to move utilities out of flood-prone areas, to make improvements to their foundations, that kind of thing. And the hope is that going forward, people can more proactively make those improvements so that if we're flooded again, hopefully not for a while now, but if and when we are, they will be less vulnerable and won't be offline for weeks and months.
And so you're beginning to see those applications probably.
Yes, we expect there'll be more of those sort of proactive asks coming in the next year or so. Actually, one of the ones on here, the Bennington High School, is an example of that. They were not flooded anytime recently, but they're doing a major rehabilitation of the building to convert it into housing.
Right.
And so they're proactively implementing some flood mitigation for the lower level of the building, which is going to be actually used for childcare facilities. Just another note on sort of basics of how the program is used. So this is a state income tax credit that offsets income taxes, can be carried forward up to 9 years. For owners of buildings that don't have a lot of tax liabilities, small mom and pop businesses, or nonprofit organizations, the other option is that these credits can be sold to a bank or an insurance company and essentially monetized. Another nice way that this is used is it can help to finance a project. So an applicant can apply to the program. If they're awarded a credit, they can then take their award letter to their local bank for some kind of collateral on a short-term loan, use that loan to do the improvements to the building, and then basically pay off the loan by selling the bank their credit when the project is complete.
Is that really common?
It is actually very common, yeah. It's a really nice feature because it can help get money into the project at the beginning. You don't earn the credit until the building improvement is made. But this allows for more flexibility in terms of finding that upfront capital you need to do the project. I don't have the exact statistics. I know I did look this up a couple of years ago, but I think probably half of the projects that we fund through the program end up selling their credits. And we work with a lot of the local Vermont banks. They're very familiar with the program, also really good allies in helping. I sometimes help connect people with local banks that are interested in buying the credits. I don't know exactly the statistics on that, but I could look that up if that was of interest.
Just got curious about to move on. You say nonprofits are all aboard.
Yes.
What about businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Businesses.
Oh.
Yep.
That last statement left me hanging a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So a business, in theory, they have tax liability. They could just use the credit to offset their liability. But if they're a small business and they don't have a lot of tax liability, they could also choose to sell their credit. Just depends on what helps them the most.
So nonprofits would be very likely.
Right.
Conceivably sell their credit.
Right, because they don't.
But this is very helpful because so many of our new projects, particularly our general stores in our communities where they have been closing, and we have one of our partners here in the corner who enabled many of those redevelopment projects, and they are also adding to our housing challenge because most of them have apartments in them.
Yes, yes.
As does the one we're looking at.
This one on the screen is a good example of that, yeah.
General store has 1 or 2 apartments,
I think
3, oh my gosh, 3 apartments. So it's really win-win all the way through.
Single-family homes are not eligible for the program. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's, again, a potential source of development for properties that are dilapidated or that need repair in order to make them commercial products. And these are some of the.
Well, as long as they're not single-family homes anymore. Yeah,
Well.
they have to be bought by a nonprofit or a business to do that.
Yeah, and we have seen, and we don't have it doesn't have to be a multifamily, it could be a former single-family home that has become a rental, that would qualify. So,
Yeah,
or if it's a larger, used to historically single-family home, but it's a large building, could be, split into a duplex or maybe 3 units, and that would also qualify. So this is just a couple of, again, these charts showing the demand. So this first one
So
shows,
I'm just gonna give you feedback. The
Yes.
numbers at the bottom are totally unreadable.
they're very small, I know, I'm so
I
sorry.
mean, particularly for those of us who have older eyes. They may still be blue, but they're older.
Yes, thank you. I will, maybe if I did a darker color, it's hard because I want to give you over a span of time and then it gets very big, but maybe if I sprinkle it to the last 5 years, that would be more.
So what we had available was in 26 was, or FY 20, we had 3.3 million available and the demand was 4.6 million.
Correct. That's exactly right. So you can see over the past 10 years, the demand has grown as we have increased the cap. And it has consistently stayed, about at least 1 million over what we have available.
You say they're competitively awarded, is it also first come, first served? No.
It's not, no. So we do have an annual deadline. And we get all the applications at once. They go to the Community Investment Board, and that board scores the applications and makes the funding decisions.
And I will note that the 1 year here that is saying you have, okay, well, I had this in my sightlines. You had 2 years where we had 5.15 and the other one we had 4.35 million available. In the 1 year we had 5.15, just to go to our no cap question, the requests were 5.7,
Yeah.
so only 600,000 more.
Right, that was
So that was a rare
the
year.
closest we've been to not being competitive, yeah.
Are there some applications that are disqualified that you would not include in that green bar, or does that green bar represent everybody that would be qualified?
This represents everyone that was qualified. We don't get very many applicants that are not qualified, mostly because I try really hard to make sure they're qualified before they apply. It does occasionally happen, but yeah, this is reflective of everything that was.
Yeah, it's hard to make it all the way through the end and then say, well, you weren't really qualified for this.
Yeah.
That's all.
So then this next one, again, these numbers are small, so apologies. This is just looking at the same data in terms of the number of projects instead of the dollar amount. So last year we had 43 applications. We funded 34 of them, which was actually pretty good. We've had some other years, 2025, we had 49 applications. We only funded 13 of them. And that's really tough because obviously we'd like to, there were a lot of really good projects that would have had an impact in communities that we were not able to fund that year. Sometimes people do come back if they're not successful the first time around, they might try applying again the next year. And so hopefully some of those people eventually, we get to them, but there are other people I think that just, they're thinking about a project, they apply, if they're not successful, they're like, this is too much, I can't do this without some sort of assistance, and so they just move on, and that's a shame.
And your application, how would you rate your application in terms of not being a barrier to application? I mean, your application is fairly, it's not.
I like to think that it's pretty easy. It's certainly a lot easier than the federal program.
Yes.
I do try to keep the paperwork that we're asking for from people to a minimum. You know, it's not a lengthy application, it's like 5 pages, you know, it's,
So it's not a barrier to application.
I don't think so.
If I could add, Chris Cochran, we revise it typically every year based on feedback, so
Good.
it's this iterative process
Great.
of always making it a little bit better than it was before.
Well, then I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. And we'll be revising it again to meet the new accessibility guidelines, so
Right.
hopefully making it even less of a barrier for anybody who's interested in applying. I just wanted to end with a few examples of projects that we funded recently that are complete, just to give you again a sense of the sort of breadth of the program. To start with, this is something that's sort of on the higher scale, a more really big project downtown Brattleboro. This is a $10.3 million project to rehabilitate an abandoned former warehouse building. They use the federal program as well as the state program, so you can see in total offset their investment by a little over $2 million between the state and the federal program. And this brought 15 new units of housing online, as well as some first floor commercial space.
Can you just tell us, because I don't think in your previous slides, you just refer to it, the federal RIT, what is RITC stand for?
Rehabilitation Investment Tax Credit.
Okay, it's the rehabilitation. Okay.
It's a mouthful, so.
No, but it doesn't use historic.
It does not. This is a sort of mid-sized project in St. Johnsbury. This was done, the Northern Forest Center purchased this building. Again, it had some first floor tenants, but a large part of the building was essentially vacant when they purchased the building. They rehabilitated it using our state credits, the facade credit, code credits. They put a sprinkler system in the
You can
building.
stack the credits.
You can,
get
yes.
many credits.
Yes. So they took advantage of multiple types of credits through the program. Ultimately, 120,000 and change in state tax credits went to the project. This brought 9 new units of housing online, right in downtown St. Johnsbury on Railroad Street. And there are also still 2 commercial units in the building as well.
Sorry. How many housing units? It's 2 or 3 commercial units.
2 commercial units on the ground floor and 9 new units of housing.
Right.
And then this is, you know, at the other end of the scale, this is a relatively modest sized project in a smaller community. This is in East Hardwick. And it was a former single family home that had been over the years sort of cut up into some not very nice apartments, and had become kind of dilapidated. A new owner bought the building and put a lot of effort and investment into rehabbing it. This has 3 units of housing, and they're all, you know, new with new appliances and really nice, you know, code compliant, all of that. So again, this project used the facade and the code credits, 72,000 and change in credits on this project that was a little over $500,000 total investment. So that's just a slice, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have. If not, I can turn it over to
Correct. So we, in the governor's budget, currently we have 3.
3 million, yes.
So at least unlike brownfields, it wasn't 0.5. And committee questions. We, you know, this would be probably a lot of programs at this committee. And brownfields.
Yeah.
Thomas, any questions?
No, thank you for that.
Okay. Great. Well, if any other questions.
Anything different, or what are you most excited about this year, Claire?
This year, you know, that's funny. My sister's name is Claire, so I totally could go with that. My parents do that to me all the time.
What are you most excited about for this year?
Well, I am excited. I feel like we, after a couple of years of like very heavy flood sort of projects, I hope that this year we can see more of those sort of proactive, looking forward kind of projects. I think that's-
Particularly the mitigation piece, which of
Yes.
course was the purpose.
Yes, exactly. So I'm excited to see that. And I think we'll have another, every year there's great projects. So always, it's really inspiring to see all the things that people are doing all over the state.
So, next, are we going to pivot to Ben or Chris? Ben Doyle, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel like I might be.
Maybe, I'm gonna
continue with your,
I'm gonna stop sharing this.
you can see Ben's
I don't
lovely
do slides.
face.
Yeah. I'm building a bridge to the 19th
You're
century.
you're Mr. History.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I do have
It's a
some.
pleasure to have you. We haven't had you in here for far too long.
Well, it's always fun. And
Introduce yourself and go for it.
sure, Ben Doyle. I'm president of the Preservation Trust of Vermont. Nice to see you all again. I have some prepared remarks, if that's all right. I'm just gonna go through them, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak with you today about the Village and Downtown Tax Credit Program and the critical role this program plays in rural economic development, particularly in light of recent and ongoing changes to Vermont's land use policy. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Trust, Preservation Trust of Vermont, we're a nonprofit organization founded in 1981 with a mission to build community through the preservation of historic buildings, villages, and downtowns. Our work takes many forms, including providing technical assistance to community groups, offering funding for preservation projects through both philanthropic and federal sources, and engaging in advocacy for Vermont's downtowns. At its core, our approach is simple. We ask Vermonters what they need to help save the spaces and places they care about, and then we do our best to help however we can with creativity, commitment, and persistence. We're often a small town project's first and longest standing friend. Last year alone, we worked on 362 distinct projects in 155 communities across Vermont. Without question, the Village and Downtown Tax Credit Program is an essential tool for the communities we serve. As you heard in Caitlin's presentation, residents from small towns across Vermont use these credits to revitalize historic buildings that anchor downtown and village vitality, leverage additional resources, and protect generations of prior investment. Of the 33 projects awarded a credit in fiscal year 26, nearly 1/3 have also received significant funding from the Preservation Trust of Vermont within the past 3 years. This includes $400,000 in committed funding for the Miss Bellows Falls Diner project, thanks to a congressionally directed spending award, $100,000 in Freeman Foundation funding for Catamount Arts 105 Eastern Avenue Masonry project, and $100,000 in National Park Service funding for the Norwich Community Grange Hall. In our role as fiscal sponsor for the Stafford Community Trust General Store project, another tax credit fiscal year 26 recipient, we helped that community leverage nearly $1.8 million in philanthropic funding. I'm not suggesting that these projects could not happen without the tax credit program. I'm optimistic, anything is possible, but from my experience, it's difficult to imagine many of these efforts being fully successful or even viable without access to this tool. I have served as president of the Preservation Trust for 5 years, and every year I come before this committee and others like it to talk about how important this program is. It serves as a catalyst for additional investment because the credits can be monetized. It's accessible both because of the simplicity of the application and the excellent technical assistance provided by Caitlin. It is the most equitable community and economic development tool in Vermont, one that small towns can actually use. As the demand you've seen demonstrates, communities value this program and actively seek it out. This year, however, feels particularly important to champion the Village and Downtown Tax Credit Program, given the significant work you have accomplished last year with the passage of legislation reforming the designation program through new land use maps, as well as the creation of the Community and Housing Infrastructure Program. These changes offer exceptional opportunity for Vermonters, particularly in rural communities seeking to address housing needs and strengthen local economies. But their success will depend on whether the ethos behind them mirrors that of the tax credit program. Specifically, the effectiveness of these reforms will hinge on whether or not communities are able and encouraged to strategically use them to foster development and growth in established settlement patterns in ways that build the tax base, preserve and expand existing infrastructure capacity, and enhance overall community vitality. This approach stands in stark contrast to efforts that prioritize public investment in places that are merely easier to build in the short term, rather than places that deliver long-term value to the villages and downtowns that define Vermont. That's why, as we work together to address a housing crisis that threatens our economy, schools, and sense of community, we also need to remember not all housing nor all public investment is equal. Subsidizing greenfield development might offer lower per cost units, but the true price of growing anywhere and everywhere is revealed when considering the full picture. Increased infrastructure costs, transportation burdens, municipal service expansion, and the erosion of economic activity in our historic town centers. This may not be an intentional action, but we have seen subsidizing this type of development inadvertently fuel the growth of national chains whose business model relies on disposable buildings and exported wealth, as opposed to authentic place-based economies that define Vermont. Conversely, developing housing within our historic downtowns and villages, while not without challenges, leverages generations of existing investments. Consider the potential of a 5-story mixed-use project in a historic center. It utilizes existing water and sewer infrastructure, reducing costs for all users. It may tap into brownfield funding to remediate contaminated sites that otherwise would sit vacant, and likely sits near public transit, safety services, schools, and vibrant local businesses that generate municipal revenue through local option taxes. The Village and Downtown Tax Credit Program helps even the smallest, most rural Vermont communities realize that potential. 5 years ago, the tax credit program had a cap of $3 million. Today, it still has a cap of $3 million. This is despite the fact that 2 years in a row, Vermont experienced significant flooding in many of our downtowns and villages. And the tax credit program, which includes a credit for flood mitigation, is one of the only tools available to responsible building owners looking to protect their property and investment. Perhaps even more important to consider is that under the new land use review maps, the eligible areas for credits will more than double. This is a positive development because it gives more Vermont communities the opportunity to invest in existing settlement patterns where they already have infrastructure, where they have already planted a flag. But without increasing the cap, it's unfortunately a hollow gesture. As someone who grew up in a town of less than 1,000 people in the Northeast Kingdom, I can promise you it's not land use policy that locks people into multi-generational economic disadvantage. It's a lack of access to capital and investment. I'm so grateful for the thoughtful leadership of this committee and all the legislators who stand up for rural communities facing, in some cases, nearly existential challenges. I ask that you continue to be thoughtful and consider what makes Vermont a place where people can find authentic, sustainable communities. And then I ask you to provide those communities with the policies and tools that will help them invest wisely in their own collective futures. In other words, please support the Village and Downtown Tax Credit Program. We should double the allocation allotted and clone Caitlin. One of those is easier to do than the other. Thank you for taking my testimony and for all that you do.
Thank you, Ben. Very helpful. Yes, we have a proposal between 3 uncapped
I mean,
and 6.
yeah, honestly, like, remove the cap, right? Politics is the realm of the possible, right? So you doubling, I think, is totally reasonable.
Hey, you have to ask, and then,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
somewhere between.
I'll just be like, really, I used to work at USDA Rural Development. I've been doing community
Yes, I'm
economic
not sure
development for,
everybody appreciates that here.
yeah, I've been doing community and economic development in Vermont for, well over a decade now. And I have to say, I'm just constantly amazed at like how few tools there really are for community revitalization. At the end of the day, there are really few tools.
So
It
what
comes
would you
down
say are
to,
the most important? Because this is clearly one of them.
I think this is it. I mean, not it, but I think that this is one that's critically important. And I think, reinforces all the investment that we've made for the past 50 years in our downtowns and village centers, right? And I think it's a wise investment. And I think people right now are hungry, right, to put investment into communities. And the question is, where are they going to do it, right? And this is the thing that allows them, I think, the opportunity to make wise investments.
Well, and we're constantly in this committee talking about return on investment. This return on investment, I mean, I watch it in our small communities with the general stores that you have saved. You now have saved and helped partner with communities to save.
We haven't saved that. We have worked with a lot of communities that, yeah.
You are the white knight out on the horse that comes in and really gives communities hope that they can save these economic centers in their very small towns.
I think that, I do
And
think
do you
that,
have a total on the number of
About a
general
dozen.
stores alone as a program?
yeah, about a dozen. Yeah, and that's using the community supported enterprise model where we help a nonprofit form. I mean, you saw a picture of East Calais General Store, Stratford, I
So
referenced
East
that.
Calais, Barnard,
Stratford, Guilford,
Stratford,
Barnard,
I mean-
Albany, really small towns, frankly, where a general store otherwise, they're competing in a global marketplace against Amazon and a dollar store, right? And so in order for those stores to be viable, you have to find a different business model. And we've been able to do that through the community support enterprise model, and it's working. I mean, in a community like Albany, which is really economically disadvantaged, it's working. That would not be possible without the tax credit program. All of those general store projects you referenced
Correct.
use the tax credit.
And all of them, I guess what I'm saying is, as we look at return on investment, all of them have a return on investment that isn't fully calculable.
Absolutely.
Because all of them not only provide an economic center, a community center in many ways, a community gathering place every day, that's where you see everybody, housing.
Yeah.
And support for the community's
Yeah.
it's just an underscoring of, yes, we matter, and yes, we can be an economic center, even if it's small. They're just essential projects. Thomas, do you have a thought?
I agree, there are some unmeasurables, but one piece that I'd be interested in is if you did look at the total grand list of those communities, if, once you get these investments in place, are the neighbors then improving their properties because they're seeing the value of the community? I'm assuming that's happening to some extent. And that is quantifiable if you're able to look at the grand list of communities that did invest it, when they invested it, and how that increased relative to the communities that haven't done this.
It's a great avenue to study.
Well, that's true. Often it's people not moving away too, because often it's saying yes and keeping people who would begin to move away if there weren't those centers.
I mean, I'll say from the way we think about this work is really what makes a community viable, right? And we're thinking about new people, trying to reach that 802 number. If we're gonna do that, right, they can't all just go to Chittenden County, right? And so what is it that makes somebody want to choose, the town that I grew up in, Sutton or Belvedere or places, or Athens? What makes them choose communities like that? And I think if there's not a community center or a place where they can see themselves, where they can meet people, I think about like Harry's Hardware in Cabot, which is not a community support enterprise. It's just a hardware store, but with a bar, and bands play there. And it's this incredible multi-generational gathering place that I think makes downtown Cabot vibrant and viable. And so when people come from away, they can kind of see themselves there.
Place to go to.
Yeah. It's a great place.
Stop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all that you do.
I brought copies of our annual report and a map that shows the 362 projects that we worked on. And I would also just say that if you ever have constituents that have an old building in trouble, we send them our way.
Yeah, I mean, the one town we haven't been able to do this in my neck of the woods is Reading.
We're actually working with Reading right now. They're
that general store is just.
Well, if I could, just very briefly, thanks to the leadership of Senator Leahy, we were able to start an initiative called the Village Trust Initiative in partnership with Vermont Council on Rural Development and the Vermont Community Foundation, where we're going to work with 20 villages of 2,500 or fewer over the next 10 years to create a community trust and some kind of transformational revitalization project in a village. Reading is one of the first cohorts actually that was selected.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So the Grange
It would be lovely if all our senators do that. I mean, the 3 senators that represented.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
And can you share with us some of the other communities that maybe?
Sure. Actually, I just referenced Belvedere. Belvedere, 370 residents. We're thinking a lot about what does economic development look like in Belvedere. And so they're one of the communities that have been selected. Let me see here. Got a whole list. Oh, right. Snowsville Community Trust.
Snowsville, apologies, where is Snowsville?
That is in Braintree.
It's in Braintree, and Rebecca live in Snowsville.
She's on the board.
This is so exciting.
It's really, Benson is a really great one. I love the Benson Community Trust. Their general store burned to the ground in 2019. These kind of 2 women started a community trust. One was the principal of a local elementary school. The other one moved here from New York. They're this dynamic duo. They've raised, I think, $1.5 million to rebuild the store. They're breaking ground in the spring. We're really seeing it, a lot of interest in the program, and I think it's going to be really successful. And the idea behind it is that we identify a village in need of revitalization, and then just provide whatever wraparound services they need. And so VCRD's team comes in and helps them vision their future. Preservation Trust, we're really doing kind of project management. What do you need, an architect, an engineer?
To actually build the housing they need. Or,
we'll see.
So it's all working in concert, committee team members. Hi, we're all enabling this which
good
is
thing.
great. This is very exciting. Any other questions? Randy, David,
Thanks for all you
Thomas,
do.
Ben, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. It's really a treat to see you.
Thank you.
We still haven't solved our page housing problem.
But
But, well,
we'll work on that.
maybe we need a historic building in downtown Montpelier that we could dedicate to the pages. for
Well, there's
housing.
always the federal building. Looking for.
That's true, and there are plenty of rooms there.
Absolutely.
Well, she's a pro.
And you got everything in, didn't you?
No, I think we've got it. Sad the feds don't turn to you for help. They should. Maybe they do. Or are they?
The federal building?
Yes.
Well, if.
What are we doing with the federal?
If you want,
We do have.
I would welcome the opportunity to talk about it if you're
All of
interested.
us, just to remind committee members, the federal building is the post office.
So in December of last
Protest
year,
Central.
yeah, the December of last year, the federal government General Service Administration notified that they were going to dispose of the building, dispose of the asset. And so there's a process for disposal of a federal building. Where we are right now, it's in
But
stage.
you're now also on the city council.
I am on the city council. This is not a city project.
He has to wear his hat, many hats.
This is actually a project of the Montpelier Commission on Recovery and Resilience, which was founded kind of after the 2003 flood. And so the commission kind of stepped up to try and work with GSA around, that is a central property in the city of Montpelier. When you think about it, people have been trying to redevelop the pit along Port Street for over 30 years. And it's always kind of broken down because the federal government didn't want to play, right? So you've got the feds, Vermont Mutual, and then the state of Vermont, DGS, owns, all of those parking lots. And
Those are all the parking lots, just so everybody knows, from the pavilion all the way through to the laundromat, basically.
That's right.
Or go to the houses just before the
right,
laundromat.
exactly. And so, when you add in the federal building to that scenario, all of a sudden you've got access from Port Street, Elm Street, State Street. And it becomes really possible to think about a comprehensive redevelopment of all of those sites in a way that has not been imagined before. And so the commission, we worked with philanthropic partners to raise some money to hire real estate redevelopment professionals, Samantha Dunn and Jeff Glasper. We hired GBA architects to help kind of look at what a comprehensive redevelopment could look like. And the Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, as an entity of the state, an eligible entity for negotiation with GSA, raised their hand and said, we will negotiate with GSA for the purchase of this building with no intention of actually owning the building, right? It's a transferable option to purchase. And so we've been working really for the last 6 months, negotiating with GSA and doing due diligence on the building.
That's the Montpelier.
Commission. Mm-hmm. And again, we've hired kind of professionals to do this work for us. What we have found, we've turned over every stone. What we have found, it's an incredibly difficult project to begin with, but in addition, there are some potential or known environmental concerns on the site that GSA frankly didn't share with us during the beginning of the process, but then just after the government shutdown, finally shared a report with us showing different kind of environmental concerns with the building that would make a potential redevelopment extremely challenging, but they will not allow potential buyers of the building to go in and continue to characterize the contamination. It's an as-is, where-is sale. So there is a scenario in which what would happen next if we're unable to come to terms, that building would go to auction, at which point any speculative investor, whether they're capitalized or not, could potentially purchase that building without access to brownfields funding. And you could essentially have a white elephant in the downtown capital for the next couple decades while people figure out how to do it.
We do not want, no one wants that.
And I would just say too, on the modeling, we've looked at the modeling of that building, and there's different scenarios. Does the building stay? Does the building go? But should the building stay, it could be condoized into different office units. It could be turned into, there is a plan, an idea of how to turn it into a hotel. But on the back lot alone, it's a 1.6 acre parcel. On the back lot alone, you could fit over 50 units of housing. And then when you start to look at, the grand scheme of the different scenarios of what could happen in the other parking lots, you could literally fit hundreds of units in our downtown.
Which would be fabulous.
It would be the new economic engine, and it would demonstrate to the state, and I think to the nation, what a flood resilient capital could look like.
Yes, yeah. So you can raise it all up there. The contamination is in the building itself, is it?
It is PCBs.
Oh, it's PCBs.
Yeah. And it hasn't been fully categorized because GSA won't let us go in there. And I will say that the Secretary of Commerce has been extremely helpful, has Secretary Moore in kind of strategizing. The delegation has written strongly worded letters. But I think the reality is, we're a nonprofit group of folks that are just like, got some philanthropic dollars together. We did get support from a special appropriation last year to do due diligence in the building, received a Northern Borders Regional Commission,
Right.
through the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. All the team is there. It's a team sport. Everybody's working hard. I'm just going to say it. The reality is that project will not move forward without state leadership. And the Agency of Commerce and Community Development has been a great partner. We have some significant challenges ahead of us that will be here again, I think, for decades if people can step up.
So thank you for that
Yep.
update. That
Thanks.
ACCD with BGS would be great partners on carrying that project forward. Thank you, that's a great update. How exciting, potentially.
Yeah.
Thank you, we are now going to pivot. Thank you very much. Caitlin, thank you. Chris, thank you. Nate, Ben, and Rebecca. Thank you. Good work.
Get rid of my.
Thank you.
Now we are also proud of this program and so dependent on it.
Allison, I sent you those addresses.
Thanks. I haven't had time to finish those, but.
I can do that for you.
Can we do, maybe meet up Friday night, give them to you?
Yeah.
Oh, I can send them to you as, so that you can update them. I've just been updating the letter.
Yeah, just approve the text and I can put them all together for you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, not my finest moment, but I'm pretty good. Welcome.
Hi there, thank you.
So we're gonna start with Chelsea.
Yes, Chelsea Vargo Lewis, Executive Director of PBSR. I sent
Good.
some slides, or Johanna sent them yesterday.
Yeah.
What is the best?
You did, but
I haven't.
Kara can run them for you, because we have them, so it might be easier. Is that okay? She's a wizard.
And it looks like she's.
All
gonna
you
be
need
better.
to do is say, and in the next
Next
slide,
slide.
and then she.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Caitlin.
you very much.
So much appreciated. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, so why don't you put us,
Yeah, thank
remind
you.
us.
Thank
Okay,
you
I'm sorry,
for
BBSR.
inviting us here today. Johanna kept reminding me that this committee knows BBSR very well, but I've only been here for 6 months, so I get to take the opportunity to reintroduce all of you to BBSR, and it's a practice for me too, so.
And introduce yourself
And
to
introduce
BBSR,
myself.
because we have not
Yes.
met you before.
Yes, indeed. Although it's great to be back in the building. I moved to Vermont 15 years ago for a job across the street with Vermont Agency of Agriculture. And it was a dream job for someone who had just gotten a graduate degree in agricultural policy. And spent a lot of time in this building, mostly not in this room, but in the Ag Committee room. So it's great to be back. So BBSR is as you know, business membership association focused on triple bottom line business results. So we talk about people, planet, and prosperity. We were founded 35 years ago by some of our premier Vermont businesses who also really believed that social impact and environmental impact should be at the core of their business. So Ben & Jerry's, 7th Generation, Vermont Creamery, all had this idea, scheming around someone's kitchen table, I'm sure, over some great cheese and ice cream.
So was it those three?
Those were three of the founding generation, yes, among others. Pat Heffernan from MPI, and many. I won't start naming them because then I'll hear. I was there too, which has been one of the most fun things that I've gotten to hear over the past 6 months is people, the pride of ownership in creating the platform that BBSR is today. Next slide. Here's our mission: to leverage the power of business for positive social and environmental impact. And we do that through these 3 key ways, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And so go ahead to the next slide. This is our vision, a just, thriving, and transformative economy that works for all people and the planet. Here's our team. We are a small, scrappy team that really punches above our weight in terms of the impact that we have. After I was at the Agency of Agriculture, I was at the Vermont Community Foundation, doing both our grant making and our mission investments. And that's where I met Mickey Wiles from Working Fields. He was a portfolio company, and Mickey had an idea for a startup that would connect people who are in recovery, coming out of incarceration, to employment through a staffing agency model. I spent 4 years kind of doing the startup thing and really recognized centering impact first. And all of our members right now, our members are at all different scales of business. Many of them,
how many members do you
we
have?
have, and I will share more data on that, but we have about 555 members today. And they are thinking about how to make the most impact they're looking at every single dollar. And we are doing the same thing on their behalf. We are really have no intention of becoming a large team. We really want to have a lot of impact using the incredible champions that we have on our board and in our membership to make the impact that we seek to have. So here's our team. Of course, Johanna, and you will hear from. Molly Rand is our education and events manager, and Jeremy Gerber is our membership manager.
Right.
And here is our amazing board. As you can see, representing multiple sectors. We do have nonprofit representation in our membership and on our board, and pretty much every sector that you can think of in the Vermont economy. I will note here, we have our C6 membership association, and then we have our C3, which is focused on the education component of our work. Next slide. Here are our champion members. I have my Concept 2 sticker here. We were just in Morrisville visiting them last week. Newly turned purpose ownership trust business. But as you can see, again, businesses from across the state who want to align their brands and their commitment to purpose with VBSR's brand. And we really aim to have engagement at every level of the organization. So, of course, a lot of the folks who come to our meetings are at the top, or the CEO, C-suite level. And more getting kind of into the general employment populace in these companies and making sure that anyone in the company, no matter where they are, sees an opportunity for leadership here in Vermont, and that VBSR can be part of their professional development and also part of what they love about living and working here in the state. Next slide. Okay, so yes, diversity of industry and scale. So here's just kind of a snapshot of some of our businesses. I don't know if you've heard about this startup tech company that is revolutionizing the care economy. Actually,
is that Tuck2? So go through
Tuck2. Yes, Tuck2. Originally founded in Vancouver, Rustam Sambuca moved to Vermont with his wife when she got a job at UPM, and he's now relaunching this company here in Vermont, and it connects people with caregivers. So it can be a lot of elder care is the primary use statement. So you can go on and log in and have someone come and care for your mother for a few hours. But there's also house cleaning and pet sitting. It's a hub for care and connection in communities. Global Village Foods out of White River. This is Mel Hall is on our board.
This is Mel, the divine.
This is Mel, yes. Mel Hall is a VBSR board member. Makes incredible food and now is
marketing. We have him because of Dartmouth, but he's from Africa.
He's originally from West Africa. Yeah. Jasper Hill Farm, everyone knows. Belco, we're really represented in every county in the state. Boyd & Burke, I'm sure you're hearing from a good amount as you focus on housing, and Derringer, also incredibly relevant in this moment.
I don't know what Derringer does.
They do trade, import-export, brokerage, and advising.
Sonoma.
Yes. Burton, and then also last week had a great visit with Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Robert Sims, their new CEO, They're also a certified B Corp, and really doing incredible things for community thinking there in that community. I think the next slide is the data. So here's our membership.
How many of your companies, of your 550 members, are certified B Corps?
That is a great question. I think there are in total, I can get you the exact stats. I think there's about 50 certified B Corps in the state. And we have almost all of them as members. We actually have a program called the Vermont B Corp Collective that's focused on providing technical assistance and opportunities. Collective action is now a requirement for B Corp certification. So we provide a platform for those businesses to attain that portion of the certification. So yes, here's the data. We mostly, these are small companies. 215 of our members are small companies, and our definition of small company is not the federal definition. It's less than 15 employees.
Less than 15?
15, yes. So these are very small. We've engaged students, we've engaged startups. We have an individual membership level for people who are either retired or job seeking. And then our champion members, as I said, that's really kind of they're supporting the mission beyond just the transactional value of membership. We added 136 new members in the past year, and here, I think around 2020, BBSR really started leaning into our programmatic work. So we were responding to help businesses adapt to COVID. We ran the small business COVID relief grant. We were doing some really deep Jedi work and helping our businesses react to the moment, racial reckoning that was happening in this country. And then we had 2 years of flooding, as of course you all know. And we stood up the Climate Ready Vermont program, which is still running and is still helping businesses both with climate resilience, but also just continuation plans for any disaster. During that time where we were focused on meeting the needs, we were not as focused on reminding members to join BBSR. And we are now back in that moment, and we are growing. Our membership, as you can see here, we're in a growth phase right now. Within health sectors. So yes. Next slide. Here's our programming and event highlights from last year. So here's how we do our work. Events and bring people together. This is part of the reason we're in a growth phase right now, is because I think all businesses recognize that they can pay a lot for some data set or have, learn from some economist or policy prognosticator, but there's no one that can tell them what's happening or what's going to happen next month or what's coming out of DC, which is why they're seeing opportunities to get together for peer learning as the biggest benefit to their business right now. Peer problem solving partnership, BBSR provides a platform for that. So we have a variety of different events. We have our annual conference, which really focuses on education. We have our BBSR Day in the State House, which is coming up. But every month there's an opportunity for members to get together in person, and then we also offer online platforms for people to learn and connect with each other as well. Okay, next slide. Just wanted to put these save the dates in here. Next week we have our annual partnership event with Simba at UVM, and we'll be focused on career pathways and retaining talent here in the state. We have a Winter Wednesday coming up at Burlington, and we've outgrown Hula for our annual conference, so we'll be moving to downtown Burlington. And then our awards ceremony will be at Essex. And our legislative breakfast will be at Hula again in November. We'd love to see all of you at any of these. Okay, next slide. And here's where I'm going to turn it over to Johanna, but of course, our policy advocacy work is a huge pillar of, it's a big part of why we were founded, was to be the business voice. We want to continue to hold the bar so that, Vermont, of course, the reason people start businesses here is because they want to be connected to the community, they love the environment, And, you know, sometimes there's an assumption that the business voice will vote for the lowest cost proposal. And we want to continue to be here to say sometimes that means investing in our communities, in our people, and in our environment to have long-term business success.
Much appreciated. We have appreciated your partnership for many years. So thank you. Thank you, Chelsea, and welcome, Johanna.
Hello. We can keep this up for a quick second. How's everyone doing today? Holding in before lunch? We had a packed agenda today.
We did. We've had our food. It's been great.
Wonderful.
Lovely to end with BBSR.
Oh, okay, thank you all so much for having me here today. It's so great to have the opportunity to come back in front of this committee. I'm sure you all remember from last year the time that we spent here. I want to start by saying it's a pleasure to be here speaking as the Public Policy Manager for Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. Again, our mission is to leverage the power of business for positive and social and environmental impact, and we advance our mission through shared learning, connection building, and collective action. I want to first start by thanking all of you, especially for the medical leave bill that was signed into law last year. We worked closely with this committee and really appreciate the expanded protections for LGBTQIA employees, their families, and individuals in need of bereavement leave, as well as those in need of safe leave in Vermont. We worked closely with you all last year. Thank you again for your hard work on that bill. We want to thank you as well for the key housing initiatives that were passed in the budget last year, especially the $36.9 million on the VHCB property transfer tax, as well as the additional $5 million for VHCB's affordable housing protections. I want to also say that in the midst of everything going on last year, that was an incredibly challenging time, and we're going to continue to see more challenges, as we know, in the coming budget year. But we also appreciated your protection of childcare funding for childcare in the budget last year. So thank you for your continuing to advance that work. I have a lot of numbers that I could share with you, but you know many of them, and I don't want to get us too into the weeds here. I want to make sure that we get to talk specifically about some of our key platforms that are relevant for this committee. So specifically, I want to talk first that these priorities have been democratically developed. They begin with input from our membership and from 2 separate membership surveys, and then there's extensive discussion among our BBSR Public Policy Committee and ultimately approved by the Board of Directors. So when I come in here, I'm not just speaking for me. There's a whole process that goes in from our membership, and so you can count on the fact that this represents the voices of BBSR. I think that's really important to talk about, especially considering the large proportion of our membership that are small businesses. I know often we're thought about as a big business entity. We represent some of the largest employers in Vermont, but we also represent incredibly small employers, those 15 FTE and less. And it's notable that actually, if you account for all of our membership and we tally up all of their number of employees, we represent about 43% of all employees in Vermont are BBSR members. So I'd like to highlight that when we're talking about what our priorities are, where we're coming from. I want to really focus in on housing for you all. You've heard these numbers and these asks a lot this week. So just note that we're in high alignment, especially with the Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont and Let's Build Homes, and we see strategic ways that these 2 entities intersect, and then we need to support smart growth in the state of Vermont. We often balance our priorities between these entities, and you can always come to us if you're interested in a perspective on what's the smart path forward for Vermont housing that's going to support workforce development and our economy. First and foremost, I want to make sure that we prioritize capital funding to create and rehabilitate and preserve affordable housing in the state of Vermont. The Housing and Homelessness Alliance and us support the $37.6 million of base funding for the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, as well as the property transfer tax and the $40 million in additional one-time funding for VHCB to maintain progress on its housing crisis addressing programs. Also, $5 million in base funding for the Vermont Housing Improvement Program, the VHIP program, to rehabilitate rental housing and making it more affordable at federal fair market rent standards. So you all have heard about those priorities from HHAB. We support those priorities as well, especially the Vermont Housing Conservation Board allocation in the budget this year. I also want to note that we continue to support the state rental assistance opportunities. So especially with over 670 Section 8 vouchers statewide at risk of a death spiral, increasing the federal funding starting this year to prevent further losses, HHAB and BBSR continues to support up to $7.9 million in one-time state funds for the voucher contingency reserve. This is to support the Vermont Housing Authority and the public housing authorities in their addressing of the Section 8 voucher crisis.
Which we're beginning to address in a significant way in the BAA.
That's right. I also want to note that it's so crucial to continue to invest in homelessness assistance, prevention, and services through this time. We know that this is an economic issue, right? When our workforce can't find places to live and when we have folks who are unhoused in our communities, it has serious impacts on our communities and our businesses. We especially are requesting a $1.3 million increase in the fiscal year 26 Budget Adjustment Act, the BAA for this year, for the HOP financial assistance through the community action agencies and homelessness service providers to restore funding those lost in fiscal year 26, just to address that specific challenge.
So have you testified in front of the Appropriations Committee that's sent
In the House.
in the House, and you'll follow up in the Senate?
We've been letting the HHAB folks go first because we want to make sure that they get on the docket, and then we'll come over and talk more about it. Yeah. I also want to make sure that we have adequate funding and policy reforms for general assistance emergency housing. So this is a $44 million for the general assistance emergency housing program. We want to note that that's essential housing and it's an essential safety net for those experiencing homelessness when no alternative emergency shelter exists. This has been a very contentious issue, as you all know. We wanted to make sure to get on the record stating our support for the general assistance emergency housing program. We recognize that there's a lot of reforms that need to happen in that program, and those conversations are continuing to move forward, but we can't leave people out on the street in the meantime. We need to find a middle ground. We also agree with the work that Let's Build
So are
Homes
you
is
supporting the work that's coming out of the House in terms of their plan?
Yes,
And, right,
currently.
great.
We'll see how the language keeps changing, of course, but yeah, as it stands, we are. You know, you see the Let's Build Homes poster on UL's committee here. We work closely with them. We're in leadership with them. We also believe in the fact that it's time to provide real predictability and speed of time to market, as you all have heard, unlocking capital and reducing construction costs. Especially the ending of sales and use tax exemption for all home construction in Tier 1 areas. The state can directly reduce the cost of housing construction by 6%. And so we know that the cost of construction is a major prohibiting factor from developing new housing, even in these Tier 1 areas. We also are looking forward to the continuing discussion of the changes happening to Act 250, 181, and the Homes Act. So we're following very closely the ways in which Tier 1 is continuing to be developed. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I want to quickly mention our democracy work in addition to this effort. So this year, BVSR especially believes that it's crucial that businesses continue to stand up for democracy in the state. We know that democracy is good for business. So we're going to continue to support opportunities to protect voting rights, as well as ensuring that the civil liberties across our state are moving forward in the right direction. If you have any questions from us about testifying on those bills, please don't hesitate to reach out.
That will be set up. So
Yes.
speaking to Brian about that when it comes. I don't remember who's starting it, whether we met together yesterday, the two committees, but I don't recall who's starting the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, and Senate Judiciary is taking up a different bill right now that is about citizen protection and civil liberties stuff. So we're tracking them really closely. We'll keep you posted.
Which is great.
Yeah. We're also here and always available to speak to workforce development issues. If there's opportunities to support the small businesses, we noted last year that we provided written testimony in support of the small business technical assistance bill that moved forward.
Right,
We would
and we're
love
going
to
to
be
be looking
seeing
at that again in terms of our economic development bill. We're going to review that with Rick and see what we want to continue to ask.
Okay, perfect. Please don't hesitate to ask us if there's anything that we might have some input on in that bill. We're very mumuch in support of that small business technical assistance work.
Right, and one of the key things we're trying to do in this session, I think, and one of the, I don't yet know whether we're going to begin in the House or here. And the committee heard this a tiny bit, but at the VEPSI conference, when Art very wisely said, well, VEPSI isn't for everybody, it isn't for every stage of business development. Being really clear about what the stages of development are for our businesses. Right. Startups, early stage, matured. What do we offer in the state for each development stage? How we can better market it? What are we missing? What is the key? I'm not sure the state should be involved in access to capital. I mean, I think that's a, capital, but, that is ongoing need at every level. But each level of development in a business needs, the resources we provide. We need to fund those resources, but what are we missing too? So I think I'd love to have this committee dig into those 4 areas, and what we do provide and what we can do better.
And we'd be very happy to speak to those, especially our programming work that's been developed over the last 5 years. We've been directly hearing from businesses, what is it that they need to ensure as much pragmatic success moving forward as possible?
When we share that with the committee, we'll begin that work. It would be great to have you at the table on that.
That sounds great.
Because you represent businesses in all, maybe not so many startups, but certainly in the.
What have you started this year? More and more startups than ever, mostly because we're seeing such a boom in Vermont. So we want to.
And you provide all sorts of, skill building and opportunities for them.
Yeah.
Which is great. Any questions for Joanna? So your platform supports a lot of our work.
Of course.
And have you been into healthcare and supporting?
We just sent a letter
Cost
supporting
for
the we just sent a letter supporting the primary care bill.
Yeah.
So
on average, just curious, on average, I heard that, we've heard on the exchange how unaffordable the increases have been for individuals. But I've also heard that business plan increases were actually much more modest, that were like, I've heard from companies only 3%, which is, have you collected that information for your companies? And what on average have been the increases in their plans?
So because folks were still determining up until very recently whether or not they were even going to re-enter the process of having a business established plan, or whether they would continue to encourage their employees to enter into the marketplace. We're still gathering that data. I think we probably won't know for another month or 2, because that's when we'll see that data about how many folks continue to say, especially our small businesses that have part-time employees, or where, they might not provide employer-based health coverage because it's been more affordable to have those on the exchange.
Yeah.
And so that's changed now, right? But it took until certain deadlines because we didn't know if the tax credits would be extended until last week, for example, to know exactly what the numbers are going to be there.
So thank you very much. It's great to have you both. Chelsea, it's lovely to have you in our committee. And committee, I think we're set until tomorrow, where we'll shift to labor.
Perfect.
So thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
And we are ready to say goodbye to our public audience.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.